So there are multiple different ways that you could potentially train your ear. There's actually different skills involved. And depending on what you want to do with your ear, you should employ some methods and you should probably ignore other methods. It has to ultimately align with what you want to do. And if you're somebody that just wants to figure out stuff by ear, or you want to do like guitar arranging, like I do on this channel at like a high level, there are certain skills that you're going to need to develop and certain skills that you're going to actually not need to develop. So let's talk about that. And later on in this video, I'm going to give you a really practical exercise that we're going to do together. You can do with your guitar if you want. And it's going to really train a central skill when it comes to arranging. So look forward to that. Now, I think of ear training almost on a spectrum of like macro to micro. At the macro end of it, somebody might play a particular chord progression and you're able to identify that particular chord progression, right? So you're getting a bunch of information and then you're labeling that information. Essentially, like you're saying, okay, that's a minor chord, that's a major chord, that's a diminished chord. And then even beyond that, you're like, okay, this is a 1-4-5-1 progression, right? This is like macro. On the other side of it, I think of it more like you're trying to figure out the parts that make up a bigger piece of information. So when it comes to chords, usually that's the thing that we're getting stuck on and that we're trying to figure out. What a chord is made of is individual notes, right? Whether the chord is minor or major or whatever is a more macro label that you'd apply to the relationship between the notes in the chord, versus not necessarily name the notes, but identify what they are is something that's tremendously important when it comes to doing arrangements. It's almost all that we're doing when we're doing it. Now, caveat here, some people are interested in doing like more like reharmonization, jazzy style arrangements. For that, I think that having more of a macro approach, or at least more knowledge about different chord qualities and options on that front, that can be helpful for that kind of thing. But for what I'm interested in and for what I teach people, I think that the more micro approach of being able to actually pick apart the notes in a chord, pick apart what makes up the chord, like the Lego blocks that are involved in the structure, and going, oh, that's a red one. Oh, I see that green one right there. I think that it's a very applicable skill. So, what is the issue with trying to figure out notes in a chord? I think, in my opinion, it's an issue of attention. Because usually, what happens is if I play a chord on my guitar, for example, like this or whatever, for the most part, if you've got some ability with your ear, not everyone is here, and that's totally fine. Some people are a few steps back, but a lot of times people would be able to figure out this top note. And what do I mean by figure out that top note? Well, the first thing that needs to happen, if you wanted to say, if you get your guitar out right now and try to find this particular note, is you're gonna first have to put your attention on that note. You're gonna have to lock that note into your mind. And before that even happens, you're gonna need to hear the damn thing, right? You're gonna need to hear ba, amidst the chaos of the surrounding chord, right? Ba. Same thing with the lower notes, right? If I asked you to try to find the bass note of this particular chord, what's actually happening in your mind is you're hearing a bunch of individual pieces of information. You're hearing 4 pieces of information. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 4 notes in that chord. And then you're resting your attention, or you're forcing your attention to lock onto a particular note within that chord. Boom, boom. And then maybe you hum it back to yourself so that you don't forget it. And you keep it in your memory long enough to actually find the thing on your guitar, right? But the problem comes in usually with the inner voices of chords, right? Like the ends are easy to see. The melodic note that's on the top is usually fairly easy to see, and the bottom note, the bass, usually a little bit harder for people, but that's usually the next thing that they end up being able to hear. And then it's the tricky inner stuff that really gives people problems, and it's usually because they are not able to latch their attention onto those particular notes. So what I'm going to do is show you a way to kind of train your ability to latch onto those particular notes and actually freaking hear them. You can identify them after you've heard them, but unless you can actually hear them, you're screwed. You're like, there's nothing to find on your fretboard, right? Because you can't hear the thing. So I'm going to play just a random chord. Let's say this one, right? Okay. So there are 4 notes that make up this chord. Okay, there's this one, this one, and this one, right? Now, what we're going to try to do is hop your attention between the notes within the chord. And first, I'm going to force you to do that, okay? So, like this. I want you to hear this note within the chord. This is going to be the easiest one, okay? You should hum the note, okay? You should hum it because it will help kind of lock it into your brain, all right? Okay, now, if you're humming it, stop humming it and just try to hear it within the chord. Are you hearing that? So I'm playing 4 pieces of information, 4 notes essentially, and you're hearing that top one. Hopefully you are. Maybe you're not. That's fine. Okay, you're just not at this level yet. Come back to this video in 6 months. Oh, I don't know how long it'll take to be able to hear the melodic notes within chords. Whatever, dude. Next one. Okay, the bass note. Ready? We're gonna latch your attention onto this bass note. I'm gonna play it in isolation. Hum it. Sing it. Okay, now keep your attention on that particular note. And try to hear it within the chord. Hear it? Boo, boo. Now the tendency is for this note, the high note, to grab your attention and pull it away from the notes you're trying to hear. So you're really trying to, it's tunnel vision. You're just trying to listen to that particular note. Boom, boom, boom. And I'll play it even a little bit louder for you. You hear that? Okay, cool. Maybe you can hear that, maybe you can't. But that's going to be your first step at this kind of like micro style ear training, is that you can like figure out the melodic note in a chord and you can figure out the bass note. I do recommend doing this with your guitar in hand. You can literally take a random chord, slap it down, and then sequentially try to figure out these notes. Okay, let's try to actually figure out one of those tricky notes. You got 2 notes in here that are going to, in general, be a big problem for people, right? They're very hard to pick out. So the first thing we're going to do is latch your mind onto one of these inner notes, all right? Boom. Now I'm going to try to play this note a little bit louder, okay? Bum, bum. You got that in your head? Hum it, sing it. I'm sorry, I'm telling you what to do, but sing it, bro. Okay, now we're going to try to hear that note in the greater context of the chord. Ready? Here we go. Do you hear it? It's in there. Or does your mind get thrown off by the other notes? Da. Can you hear it? It's tricky, man. Da. So that's your first step, is for me to be able to like play you a note, put it in your attention, and then to keep your attention on that note and be able to hear it within the chaos of the other notes within the chord that are trying to pull your attention away. Okay, let's try the other note, the other inner note, which is this. I think this is probably the hardest one to find in this particular chord because it's very consonant. This particular note, it's a weird note. Not that weird, but it's a little more dissonant in the sense that it's like a 7th. This remaining note is a 5th, so it has a tendency to kind of get lost in your mind. So let's put your attention on this particular note. Da, sing it, bro. Hum that boy. Okay, now try to keep our attention on that particular frequency, right? And then I'm gonna play the full chord. You hear it? Da. Actually, on my guitar, this note rings out a little bit louder than that one, so it might actually be not that hard. Okay. hearing that? Ba. Cool. Okay, now what we're going to do is sequentially go through each of these notes. You ready? We're going to try to like practice latching our attention to one note and then hopping it to another note and then hopping it to another note. I'll do kind of like a middle version of it first. So first thing we're going to do, I'm going to play this note. You're going to latch onto that note. Hum it if you have to. Then I'm going to play the full chord. And then I want you to keep this in your attention. And then I'm going to go to the next note. And then keep it in your attention. And then I'm going to play the full chord. Keeping that note in the attention. Try to just hear that particular note. And then we'll move on. We'll do this with each note. Okay? Let's do it. Okay. Here we go. Again. Next note. That one's hard. Got it? Next one. Full chord. Try to hear this note. Okay. All right. How about that last note, that bass note? Okay. Again. Grab it. Okay. Cool. Let's do another round. We're gonna go a little bit faster with it. Okay. Here we go. I'm gonna hit this one again. Okay, all right, cool. Now, here's the final step. And this is something you're gonna just kind of do in your head ultimately. But I want to play each note in the chord in succession, like this. And then your goal is I'm going to play that chord 4 times, all of the notes of the chord, and you're trying to hop your attention from note to note. We're going to stop at we'll start at the highest note, which is this, and then you're going to try to hear this, and then this, and then this, right? So, ma, 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 ma. All right, it's freaking hard, man. And I'm going to try to bring these notes out a little bit louder at first, okay? So here we go. You're trying to hear bum, 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 boom. Let's try it again. Bum, bum, bum. Do it again. Dude, it's actually really hard for me to like make that note stick out. Try again. Try again. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, let's go the opposite direction. Boom, boom, ba, ba. Let's do it again, and I'm not gonna accent anything at all. Okay, you're trying to hear this again. And if you get good at this, you can kind of hop your attention to whatever note you want in the particular chord. This is an easy version of this, right? Because I'm giving you a chord. I'm giving you a full chord, and I'm highlighting the notes within that chord, and then asking you to slap your attention on them. But what actually is going to be happening when you're doing an arrangement is this: is you can't see the chord that's being played, right? So let's try this with 3 notes, okay? Okay, how about that? Okay, you can't see these, okay? So ultimately what I'm doing a lot of the time when I'm trying to figure out a chord is this. I'll hear a chord, Usually the melodic note, the note on the top, is jumping out at me first, right? And then maybe after that, I'm going to shift. I'm going to try to listen to the lowest note. Right there it is. But then for pretty much everybody, that middle note is going to be a real problem. And one of my favorite ways of finding those inner notes is to take my attention and put it on the highest note or the lowest note. It depends on whichever note is closer to the note you're trying to find. In this case, it doesn't really matter. But so I'm going to put my attention here. And I'm going to try to hear between my chord plays. I'm going to play the chord, try to hear that top note. I'm going to play the chord again, and then try to see if you can take your attention and kind of hop it down to whatever that middle note is. You're trying to essentially hear a melody, almost like a melody, emerge between the two notes you're putting your attention on. So I play all the notes at the same time. I put my attention on that top note. Then I play all the notes at the same time again, and then I'm going to put my attention, I'm going to try to slip it down so that it lands on that inner note, okay? Here we go. We're going to try to slip our attention from that top note to that middle note. See if we can do it. Start here. And then it's going to go, it's going to land somewhere. I don't know. I don't know. Try again. Did you get it? This is tricky shit, man. So the melody I'm hearing emerge as this. So I'm thinking to myself, just like with the previous example, right? All of this is obviously easier said than done. It comes with a lot of training. By the way, if you want a sick app that will train you on this exact skill and give you mountains and mountains of chords so you can blast your brain and actually learn this so you can do your own arrangements, click down below. My app is completely free. Snag it today. If you want, I'm also offering people a totally free ear assessment, just a one-on-one call with me to see where your ear is and what you should be doing to improve it. But yeah, check it out. My app is totally free down there. Get it. You know, when you're trying to arrange music for guitar, this particular skill of being able to, you know, zero your attention in on those tricky voices is almost everything. You know, aside from that, it's just getting the notes into the program. I use Guitar Pro, and then figuring out how to take those notes and turn it into a practical, playable thing on the guitar, right? I think that this particular form of ear training, compared to something like intervals or recognizing progressions and stuff like that, is going to be more suited to the skill of arranging, making really accurate arrangements. Again, there's no right way to be a musician. There's no end all be all. You get to choose what the hell you want to do on guitar, and if arranging is something you want to do, cool. Learn this crap. If you want to become a great improviser, I don't know how much of this is actually applicable. Maybe some, I'm not really sure. I do a specific thing with guitar, so I don't know. But yeah, that's it, dude. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and get my app. Train your ear, dog. Get down there. Bye.